Ty the Tasmanian Tiger was released in 2002 for GameCube, Xbox, and PlayStation 2 by Chrome Studios, then later released in HD for Steam in 2016. Although initially released to mixed reviews, having only a 6 out of 10 rating on Nintendo Life, Ty has generated a small but dedicated fan base over the years, and in fact, Ty has a perfect 10 out of 10 rating with over 2,000 reviews on Steam. I grew up playing the Ty trilogy on PS2, and I can say I've been a fan since the very beginning. This game oozes with that PS2 low poly charm, and it stands out as a PS2 classic. Throughout the video, we are going to discuss everything about Ty, from the graphics to the story. Now sit back and enjoy.
Graphics, the cornerstone of video games.
Every level in Ty has a unique atmosphere to it, from the laid-back feel of shipwrecks with its sandy beaches and deadly underwater excursions, to Snow Worries, whose music makes you feel like you're playing out a spy movie thriller. Seriously, listen to this and tell me you don't feel like you're about to break into a high-security vault and make away with enough riches to order 3 burgers at Five Guys. And even though a couple of levels are similar in looks, like Shipwrecks and Rex Marks the Spot, the atmosphere of those levels is so different that you feel like they aren't similar at all besides the returning characters that are present. As you go through the game, levels get slightly harder, but it's really the stakes that keep the tension there. You know Boss Cass is getting closer and closer to reaching his goal of dino domination, and you feel all the pressure of stopping him on you. Every character in Ty looks incredible. They all have this charm to them where their character design matches perfectly to their personality. We'll get more into those details about characters in a bit, but as for the designs, they're spot on. Our protagonist Ty has a simple but standout look to him. His iconic red shorts and striped back represent his feisty yet laid-back Aussie demeanor exactly. Mari's posture alone makes him look like the loving grandfather figure that he is, and his plain blue t-shirt reinforces that. He's just an old guy wearing a casual 3-button polo, flying around the outback and giving some advice to his young pupil. He doesn't need pants. He's a bird. Come on. He's not out here to get his hands dirty. He's past all that. He just wants to land on his little sign and offer some words of wisdom and encouragement to Ty. As far as sound design goes, it's pretty well executed. There are a few issues, but I'm not sure if it's because I'm playing the HD remastered version or not. For example, during the few pre-rendered cutscenes throughout the game, the dialogue quality drops significantly, but as soon as the pre-rendered portions are finished, those same characters sound crisp and clear. Again, that could just be a remastered issue, but I don't have access to the original PS2 version, so there's no way to know for sure. One other issue is the boomerang sounds. This isn't really an issue as much as just a weird choice. Whenever you hit a boomerang on something that isn't an enemy or a button, they make this very high-pitched twang sound. Now, it's not the worst thing in the world, but it does kind of poke at your eardrums. The music and the atmosphere are doing their own thing, soothing you into a focused trance as you get vibe checked by a snowboarding beaver. So you toss a boomerang their way, but you miss and hit a rock and suddenly your ears are assaulted by this twang! Maybe it's just me being sensitive to the noise, but I really don't enjoy it. I'm trying to not include many more of these moments through the review just to spare your ears the pain. Now let's get into the tunes. I've posted a link to the soundtrack in the description because honestly, this thing bangs. Not every track is bombastic or catchy, but they do their jobs very well. Subtle banjo and chirping birds during the tutorial level 2-up gives a very relaxed and unrushed feel to the level, whereas the Outback level, Outback Safari, has this intense, also softcore metal sound that makes it feel like you need to go somewhere. You've got rampaging to do, and you and Mom Bull aren't letting anything stand in your way of getting it. Every level has this music that matches it very well, and it's honestly a treat to listen to as you explore each level. The voice acting in Ty is top notch. Every character feels enthusiastic and delivers their lines with passion.
Requires this many ice thunder eggs to work. Why? Is this so?
You shouldn't be here, Ty. This is where Neddy lives. Neddy. Yes, Neddy. He's the biggest, toughest bully this side of the black stump.
Well, he doesn't sound so tough.
Nice one, Ty. Now you've riled him.
Would you mind keeping those blue tongues off me back while I fill up my watering bottle?
No worries.
Thanks, Possum.
I need a favour, mate. There's a flock of cave bats in there.
A lot of these lines are kind of corny, and the lines are reused a lot, especially for Ty, but it works. It's a cartoony game, and the over-the-top performances by certain characters are welcome. Sly looks and sounds like he should be a part of the Evanescence Bring Me to Life music video, or at least the goofy cover.
Wake me up inside. I can't wake me up inside. Save me.
There isn't much dialogue in this game compared to newer releases, but what is there is gold, and you treasure each time you get to meet a new character or hear Julius spout more science technobabble than Samantha Carter in Stargate.
The Frostilarius eggs require a critical mass of antimatter goodness linked to challenge response quark indicators.
If I can dial down the power flow to the hyperdrive emitter, theoretically I should be able to cause a partial shift into hyperspace, essentially taking the ship out of the cloud space-time.
These, in turn, re-amplify the vector streaming oscillators for a
10. Therefore, if we assume the existence of 10 dimensions in space-time, the variables are cancelled out and the calculations suddenly begin to make sense.
functory quantum prolapse resulting in a Podesta ball phenomenon.
There can be a lot going on in this game. Jumping into a new level and seeing everything that you have to collect and all the challenges to complete can be a bit daunting. Luckily, just pressing the pause button can make all those worries go away. The swift sounds of the menus and intuitive design make Xbox's UI team want to unalive themselves. I'm a really big fan of video game menus, and Ty is up there with some of my favorites. Easy to navigate, simple, clear, and it gets you where you need to be with minimal sub-menus. It has it all. Overall, Ty the Tasmanian Tiger excels in world design. Every element comes together to give the player a lovely experience that beckons you to keep coming back. Of course, this isn't everything you need to make a great game, but it's a wonderful way to start. Ty is a joy to play as. The controls in this game are super tight, especially for a PS2 era platformer. You always get the feel that you have control of Ty, and in general, distances are fairly easy to judge. Very few leap of faith moments is what I'm saying. The only exceptions to this are the toxic waste part and the doomerang portion. In these sequences, you're operating in first person mode, and the controls can be a little unforgiving. But besides these sections, the game has stellar in-hand feel. Controls are natural: X to jump, square to throw, circle to bite, triangle to go first person. It all feels very fluid. No awkward button presses that you have to actively think about. The game becomes very second nature. Overall, extremely natural feel. You don't have to think about anything, you just kind of do it. All of the levels in Ty have great atmosphere, but one area the game struggles in is level design, or really I should say layout. A game with so much backtracking that you'll need to do to get 100% has a few levels, particularly the latter half ones, that can be quite annoying to backtrack through. All the levels do have these green mushrooms that teleport you back to the start at the end of each level, but the stages have so many different paths to the end that it can feel like a chore at times to slog back through them just to find 2 or 3 opals that you missed during the first run through. Though this could have just been me, I've never been a fan of collectathons, and those of you that enjoyed them might love this little collecting adventure. To me though, it just kind of feels like extra work. Another positive thing to note is this game is crispy. It's smooth. It didn't encounter any lagging or stuttering you sometimes see in remasters. Jack and Daxter. Ty always feels like butter and makes moving around the levels that much more enjoyable. There is somewhat of a delayed response with button pressing, but I think it's meant to be kind of a cooldown timer. Although this can cause you to take some cheap hits that you would have otherwise dealt with. It's not too bad though. And since Ty has a very low skill ceiling, you really won't notice it too much. Mainly when you're being swarmed by several enemies at once. Trying to make tight turns underwater can be tricky, and this one snow part on snowy bluffs is frustrating, but the majority of underwater parts don't require any tactical maneuvering under the water, so again, it doesn't hamper the overall experience significantly. As I mentioned earlier, there's quite a few collectibles in Ty. Each level has 300 opals to collect, as well as 5 to 10 thunderstones to collect, and golden cogs, which you use to get access to new boomerangs. There's also 25 rainbow scales to be found around the Rainbow Canyons area that give you a special bonus once you've found them all. I'll go into the significance of all these collectibles and their part in the story later, but I can say they're very satisfying to find. Even for someone like me who doesn't enjoy collecting every little thing in a video game, this game makes you want to collect. Having tangible results for collecting is a big part of that. You're rewarded for every type of collectible. Finding all 300 opals on any given level gives you an extra thunderstone. Finding all the thunderstone gives you access to more levels, which further the story. And finding all the golden cogs gives you access to new and more specialized and sometimes even game-breaking types of boomerangs. including a final special boomerang that is pretty much a passive tool, but it's really fun to play around with. There are also semi-invisible transparent boxes throughout the game that give you an art gallery piece that you can look at in the main menu. It's a very cool optional collectible that's in the game, and the bonus levels for 100% completion really take these to the next level. As far as glitches and bugs go, Ty is pretty squeaky clean. I did encounter a few graphical issues with textures not loading or being low res, and a couple of times the environment bugged out, but besides that, I never had a game-breaking bug or crash throughout the entire playthrough.
Come get you some crunchy, boy.
So, the story, what the game's actually about. What is it about? Well, now that we're done with all the technical stuff, let's get into it. Fair warning, I will be spoiling the entire story, so if you don't want that, skip to this time code. Ty the Tasmanian Tiger opens on a pre-rendered cinematic of Ty running through the bush with a bilby just being a tiger. He proceeds to fall into an ancient ruin and discover a drawing of a battle that took place seemingly long ago. This is all covered by the shaman, and to summarize, Boss Cass is in his giant robot and is about to steal the last talisman and erase all mammals from the face of the earth. Now this is portrayed as happening long ago with the ghostly shaman and the cave painting, but we later found out that Ty's parents were involved in this battle, so it clearly didn't happen that long ago. And they've been missing ever since the battle, and were sucked into a portal similar to the ones we use throughout the game to access different levels. So right away, we have a weird timeline going on. Did one of Cass's lizard blokes just stumble into this cave and decide to betray his Lear's destruction? It's never really explained, but this incident sets the plot in motion. Ty is rescued by Maury, and shortly after sent to Bleebley Station. I'm sorry if I said that wrong. Bleebley? Bleebley? I'm gonna go with Bleebley Station to meet up with Julius. It is then explained to Ty that Julius has created this device powered by thunder eggs to open portals where Ty can go to retrieve the 5 talismans. Of course, he'll have to gather enough thunder eggs to do this. To do this, we'll have to explore areas all over Australia, and we begin with a brief tutorial in 2-Up that gives us the basics and a brief look at some of the enemies and challenges we'll be facing throughout the game. After this level, the gates are literally opened, and we can choose between 2 levels, Walk in the Park and Shipwrecks. It doesn't really matter which level you choose first, because you got to go through them all anyway, but Shipwrecks does kind of help because of a special advantage we'll get to in a second. And I would recommend, if it's your first time going through the game, go to Shipwrecks first. I did Walk in the Park, and Shipwrecks would have been a better choice. There are a total of 13 levels, including the final boss battle in the game, and 4 levels in each area, not including the last one. As I just said, the first 2 to choose between are Walk in the Park and Shipwrecks. Walk in the Park is a rainforest level where you meet a couple of key characters, these being Ranger Kin and Shaza. Oh yeah, and there's one more. The turkey. I honestly think it's a peacock or some similar bird, but come on, it's a turkey. This thing should not be this frustrating. All 3 of these characters are reoccurring throughout the game. Shaza is constantly playing the damsel in distress, which really doesn't fit her personality, but I guess that's also what Ranger Kin is playing, so it's fine? Maybe? But the introductions are great. Ranger Kin is just that. He's a ranger, he's a Tasmanian devil who cares about the environment, and his missions are typically focused around protecting wildlife like bats, or the environment and those living in it, which we'll get to in Outback Safari. Overall, this is a pretty fun walk in the park. Haha, no. No, I'm not putting in that. Maybe I will. You're introduced to some fun elements like the water slide and these flowers that launch you to different parts of the map. As with every level, our goals are to find all the thunder eggs, collect all the opals, save the bilbies, and make it out of there unscathed. Now, Walk in the Park is the first time where you really start to feel that Boss Cass is a threat, as you have to save Shaza from being attacked by some of his goons. So, after we complete all of our challenges, we are left with the next level, which is Shipwrecks.
Welcome to the Great Barrier Reef, full of beautiful fish, friendly natives, and inviting sandy beaches. It's a beaut spot for a swim if you know how.
This level, atmospherically, is so great. It's an absolute joy to move around, and this is where we get our first boomerang upgrade, the Aqua Ring. These allow us to get into deep water without flailing around like a fat dog, and we go much faster. With these, we can fight underwater enemies as well as find collectibles previously unattainable to us. We meet 3 new characters in this level as well. Rex, who teaches us about aqua rings, his wife Elle, who we discover is a bit of an adventurer herself, and Aurora, who has a lot of kids. Interestingly, lost kids are a big part of Ty's story. Aurora loses her kids in the ocean, Sheila loses her kids in the snow, Maury loses his nephew in the snow, and if you think about it, Ty's parents lost him when they got sucked into the portal. Perhaps parenting isn't a strong point in Ty's world. Anyway, back to the level. So our main goal of this level is to reach a very tall island at the end of the level to rescue Elle. Although we do find out she isn't really in any real danger, it's just she wanted to sunbathe on top of the island. But before that, we have to get to her. To do this, we have to swim past giant eels, spearfishing lizards, our normal raptor enemies, and great white sharks, who have all decided to gather in this very confined space for shark reasons. These used to terrify me as a kid, and getting bitten by one would send shivers up my spine. But replaying this made me realize they aren't too hard to get past, and they only do a quarter of your health and damage, so it's really not that bad. Oh yeah, while you're underwater, you have a different life bar represented by a blue paw. This one goes down if you're running out of air or if you get hit. And maybe I'm misremembering things, or maybe the HD version is different, but I remember constantly struggling to have enough air when playing this as a kid. Playing it now, I hardly ever have to worry about air. I would often swim past entire sections of enemies because you can swim much faster under the water, and you can hold your breath for quite a while. Anyways, after collecting all the Thunder Eggs, spending 30 minutes and giving up and watching a YouTube video on how to find this stupid ship, and spending another 15 minutes trying to figure out how to get the Thunder Egg inside the ship, we are done with Rex Marks the Spot. We take all our Thunder Eggs and give them to Julian, who uses them to power his horribly inefficient machine and creates a new portal for us to explore. This is the last level in the Bleepley Station, and it is a boss fight. Bull's Pen is a very easy and straightforward boss fight though, where we are teleported directly into a Razorback Boar's pen, and he is understandably upset. We trick him into running into 3 pillars and are rewarded with our first talisman. Don't worry though, our angry friend will be back fairly soon. Next, we go to Julian's lab and are gifted with a new ring, the Flamerang. Using this and some exploration around Rainbow Cliffs, we find and unlock Pippi Beach, where there are 3 new levels for us to explore. Okay, so quick note from here on out, I'm going to speed through a few of these levels because it would be monotonous to talk about them all in detail, and I want to focus on a few of them that I really enjoy. Now for me, Pippi Beach is the most fun stretch of the game. We are given a few cutscenes that make us realize the tension is rising, but the game still has that laid-back feel to it, and at this point, your mind doesn't feel rushed. The first level we come across is Bridge on the River Ty, which to me is a terrible name. But here we meet our classic wealthy homosexual character, Dennis. In my headcanon, Dennis and Maury are lovers.
Ty? Oh, Maury's friend.
Dennis lives in a pretty sketchy part of town despite his immense wealth, and by performing tasks for him, we can earn some Thunder Eggs. Because it is at this point we realize that each area will give us a different color Thunder Egg and opals. There are really no difference between them, but it's a nice symbol of progression. So we go around and turn Dennis's heat back on, collect 300 opals, make friends with a not-so-friendly giant.
Trespasser am orange rat.
And that's pretty much Bridge on the River. It has a very nice atmospheric feel, and aside from this jump for a golden cog and another bout with the turkeys, it's quite enjoyable. I really enjoy these smaller levels, and the later game starts to struggle a bit from having large, sprawling levels that are pretty difficult to navigate. Now for the second level in Pippi Beach, Snow Worries, this level is an absolute banger. From the underwater caves to the accompanying spy music, this level is near perfection. And seriously, this music is so damn good.
Hey, want to listen to some tunes?
feel like you're infiltrating Boss Cass's territory and getting right into enemy line. I could run around this level all day. Our main goals are to rescue Sheila's lost children, commit animal abuse against a crab lobster thingy, and reach the top of the mountain using the logging system to open challenges along the way. There's also very unique parts of this level, such as the part where we have to hit musical ice crystals in the correct order, walk on invisible floating ice platforms, and walking very slowly on literal thin ice, which is surprisingly entertaining as you hear the cracks and pops of the ice breaking apart beneath you. Snow Worries has a ton of content. Once we reach the top of the mountain, we are given a cutscene to show that Boss Cass is onto us and sends a new agent to stop us in our tracks. However, we won't see this new character for a few levels. Now, if this game wasn't diverse enough already, the developers decided to add in a GTA level, wherein we ride the bull from the last boss level. Not to mention, this level is gorgeous. Look at this oasis. If this game had shaders, this would look insane. Riding around, wrecking everything in sight is vastly entertaining, and just to keep continuity, hitting pillars of rock in the desert still hurts the bull. Once again, we meet our friends Ranger Kin and Shaza, who each have a couple of tasks for us. Ranger Kin wants to stop the government from dumping toxic waste into the oasis and eliminate the town's water supply in order to save the town from being burnt to a crisp, and of course killing quite a few frills in the process.
Double kill, triple kill, overkill, kill-tacular, killed.
We also have to protect Shaza while she is making her daily rounds and race her for an extra Thunder Egg. This is the only challenging race in the whole game, and although I still won on my first try, look at this photo finish.
Whoa, you beat me fair and square.
After Outback Safari, we head back to Julius and give him our newly acquired Thunder Eggs. He then opens another boss portal and we jump in to fight a giant mechanical shark, but actually, he turns out just to be a normal shark. We blow him up a few times, his mind-controlling metal frame comes off, and he is able to escape from SeaWorld back to the Big Blue, and another talisman is acquired. Shortly after, we return to Rainbow Cliffs, and we are given the Frosty Ring by Julius. Probably the most OP ring in the game, tied with the Kaboomerang. Using this ring, we now have access to Lake Burrill? I can't pronounce anything, I'm sorry. Lake Burrill, which hosts portals to Liar Liar, Pants on Fire, Beyond the Black Stump, Rex Marks the Spot, and then Fluffy's Fjord as the boss level. Now these levels are fun, don't get me wrong, but this is where a lot of the backtracking headaches appear. These levels are a lot more convoluted than previous levels, and trying to find all the collectibles or backtracking to a previous part to grab some opals you missed can be a pain. Several areas are gated, meaning once you pass a certain point, you can't return to that point without using the green mushrooms or exiting the level. In all honesty, it's not that bad, but going back to 100% the game can be a little frustrating. Now that you know that, let's get to where these levels begin, and we're going to start with Liar Liar, where we meet Lenny the Lyrebird. What a piece of shit. All this man does is eat hot Cheetos, charge his phone, and lie. After not following Lenny's directions all the way to the end of the level, we reach a factory of some kind. After stopping it from exploding, we meet the ultimate edgelord, Sly. He is a Tasmanian tiger just like us, but he works for Boss Cass for unknown reason. This mini-boss battle puts us against a new boomerang user, and is a pretty fun change of pace. We defeat Sly, and he runs away saying he'll get us next time. Overall, Liar Liar is it's fun, but not great, and mildly annoying to move about the confundeled layout and assassins and whatnot. For the next mission, Beyond the Black Stump, we return to the snow. This time though, we have to switch between using our Icy Ring and Fire Rings, because the Icy Forest is on fire. Once again, we find Sheila's children and contact CPA, find Maury's lost nephew, and have a snowball fight with some lizards. It's a pretty fun level, but sort of forgettable since we already had a snow level that was definitely better than this one. Our last level is Rex Marks the Spot, another repeat level. Rex and Sheila are here to rob an octopus and find buried treasure, and we are here for the ride. It's actually a pretty fun level. This archipelago gives you different challenges with each island, and the Wedgwood Pirates treasure is a little fun scavenger hunt. Or no, it's a treasure hunt. It's literally a treasure hunt. I do really enjoy this level out of context, but in context it feels kinda out of place. The last two levels felt like in-game levels. We are deep in enemy territory, and you can tell the environment is deadlier, the enemies are more densely packed, and it gives you the sense that this is hostile territory. Rex Marks the Spot is a relaxing beach vacation, which is a lighthearted break, but we don't really need that right now. We know we're running out of time, and this level just feels like it should have come earlier in the game. I like it, but it's hard to enjoy when you know the stakes. So, we've once again collected a bunch of rocks, green ones this time, and it's time to give our rocks to an over-evolved koala. Julius then opens the portal to Fluffy's Fjord, which is like fighting the Iron Giant. This battle could have been a lot of fun, but for some reason my boomerangs were having a hard time connecting with the areas I was supposed to be hitting. This could have just been me, but it was kind of frustrating thinking I was doing something wrong when I was hitting the robot with the correct rings and nothing was happening. After sinking the robot into the icy lake, we are introduced to the original Lady Dimitrescu, Fluffy, who clearly has a thing for Ty.
I have to say, I am impressed.
We get another talisman, and it's at this point I remember what golden cogs are for. That's right. I did not upgrade my boomerangs at all until the second to last level because I forgot. I forgore, as Kanye said. So, I go to Julius's laboratory, we get the Zoomerang, Boomerang, Multi-Rang, Mega-Rang, Info-Rang, and Electro-Rang. And there's still two more I didn't get until I 100%ed the game, but we'll get to that in a bit. To break them down real quick for lore's sake, the Zoomerang goes really far, the Kaboomerang creates a giant explosion, which decimates enemies, but you do throw both rangs at once, so you're defenseless for a short period of time. The Multi-Rang is a short-range rang that multiplies when thrown. The Mega Rangs, which hit multiple enemies before returning to your hand, is great for crowd control. The Info-Rang, which is really only used for finding the gallery pieces, which are nearly invisible, that are hidden throughout each level. However, these do not count towards your 100% completion, so they're an optional collectible. And the Electro Ring, which zaps enemies and gives you access to the final blocked off area. The final area we unlock by using the Electro Ring on the generator outside is oh so cleverly named Gate Zone, which we open a gate to get into. Which inside we only find one portal. As we jump through the portal, we are given one of the best cutscenes in the game. Boss Cass is just so erratic and it's pretty funny to watch even today.
No, that's my last name. What's my first name?
Oh, I know!
Let him answer!
Cass's Pass is the final portal, which is sort of a final mob of enemies we have to defeat before reaching Boss Cass. It's a forested swamp area, which honestly isn't too menacing. This part didn't take me long at all, but once we reach the end, we have yet another final portal, which doesn't really make sense to have this area just to bring us to another area, but whatever, we made it. Mori warns us that no one has ever come back from Cass's crest, but we jump in anyways, and on the other side is a volcanic, lava-filled lair, which we must fight through to get to Cass. Once inside, Shaza tries to give us the final talisman, but this sexy goth vampire woman kidnaps her, and we chase her throughout the level.
A simp has fallen for an e-girl in Lego City.
Along our quest to do this, we are ambushed by Sly, but Ty outmaneuvers him, and he falls into lava and dies. Not really. Our hero saves him at the last second, and this is going to give us the final weapon we need to defeat Boss Cass. We jump onto his giant robot, which is heading somewhere to do something. The specifics aren't really given to us, and we don't need them. All we need to know is robot bad, stop robot. But take a moment to enjoy the view, because despite the circumstances, it's really quite beautiful. While we're on the robot, we whip out Google and try to figure out how to destroy these flamethrowers. I honestly had forgotten Ty could bite because I used it so infrequently and was genuinely lost here. After we destroy the power beams inside, Sly gives us our final necessary boomerang, the Doomerang, which we control after we throw it, and we go down into the winding tunnels of the robot and destroy its core, thus defeating Boss Cass. It's kind of weird that Ty and Cass never really meet face to face, but with his defeat, the world is saved. We head back to Rainbow Cliffs and are greeted by our long-lost parents. The The only thing that's left to finish is the collectathon, which involves turning on cheats because there's absolutely no way a noob like me would have found these things without them. Look at these opals. How? Our reward for doing this is 2 bonus levels full of art gallery boxes. These are pretty fun to mess around with, and I'd say they're worth it. After that, I headed to Julius one last time to get the Chrono Ring. These rings slow down enemies when you hit them, and they are a pretty cool novelty, although not that practical. Oh, and also the rainbow scales. There are 25 of them, and when you collect them all, you are given an extra paw of health, which is a nice bonus, but considering how little damage you actually take in this game, is not really necessary. And that's it. That's Ty. So after all that, does the story make sense? I mean, Ty isn't the type of game where that really matters. This isn't a Last of Us where every character decision and story element is held up to the highest scrutiny. Couldn't Julius just make us the Electro Ring first and we wouldn't have to deal with all these other hassles? Yeah, but where's the fun in that? The story has this natural progression that flows like a stream, and it's smooth. And while some levels feel out of place, the game wouldn't be better without them. However, none of that really matters if the story isn't enjoyable. So is it? Yeah, it is. As Ty, you feel like an essential part of the world, and you as the player want to find the next challenge, collect all the opals, collect every Thunder Egg. This is a simple game, but that's okay. Not every story has to be considered Fleabus. This is a lighthearted story about a Tasmanian tiger throwing boomerangs that explode on impact, and it's perfect the way it is. There isn't much to say about the world building of Ty the Tasmanian Tiger that the game doesn't already show you, but it's one of those games where you can use your imagination to explore more of the world itself. You can imagine a world full of animal-like creatures and how the world would function, and you can do it without intrusive sexual thoughts, Beastars. Now, I want to cover lore in all of my videos because that's the most interesting part of every game to me. What are the powers? Who are the heroes, villains? What are their stories? What does the magical object do? What's the origin of the castle? These are all what I look for in a video game. Ty isn't really one of those games. Everything is pretty simple, and there's not too much to wonder about, unfortunately. Having said that, though, that doesn't mean there's no lore at all. There is some mystery to who Nando Gilly is. That's the shaman, by the way, in case you were confused since his name isn't mentioned once. He's apparently a Bunyip Elder, although he seems to have semi-mystical powers. As a player, you're given precious little knowledge about the world and the characters you interact with. How did this animal society come about? Why are some animals sentient while others seem not to be? How does Julius build a teleporter when he hasn't seemed to have figured out doors yet? You can fill in these answers in your own headcanon, but no official answers are ever given. And perhaps that's for the best. So, what about our main character Ty? He's honestly not the most compelling character once you start looking too deep into him, but he is a solid enough base to keep us interested in the story, and sort of a hollow vessel that we experience the world through. Ty doesn't really go through any character development or learn anything from the story, but that's okay. There isn't a need for a giant narrative shift or a character change in order to make the story interesting. Ty is motivated by both his moral compass and his desire to find his parents. The flashback at the beginning reveals that Ty's parents were somehow captured or teleported somewhere by Boss Cass. Ty, in turn, wants to defeat Boss Cass and collect all the talismans in order to bring them back. As opposed to Sly, Ty is an absolutely morally good character. He spends the entire game doing good deeds for others, rescuing those in need, defeating bad guys, and even convincing one of the main antagonists to join his force for good. Although this moral compass isn't totally unique to Ty, all of his allies seem to be wholly pure at heart, except for Lenny the Liar, who I'm not even sure is on Ty's side, or if he just wants to trick him into blowing up his house for the insurance money. Also, Dennis, from Under the Bridge, is kinda iffy and selfish as well, but I wouldn't say he's evil in any way, he's just timid and a little greedy. Ty fits in this black and white world, which has a clear line defining good and evil. If this was Red Dead Redemption, Ty would for sure get the deer ending.
I like you, mister. You have a kind face.
Although you don't have any decision you can control as far as the story goes, Ty the Tasmanian Tiger maintains a rock-solid pace and a clear vision, so you're never really surprised about what Ty did or disagree with his actions as far as if his character would really make those decisions. Tai is very much the protagonist of his own story, and it's one of those games where the world revolves around the main character. Wandering around the world makes it clear that absolutely nothing would get done if Tai wasn't there. For instance, a lot of characters are in some sort of peril when you meet them, and seem to do nothing to remedy their situation besides wait for a hero to come along and rectify it. Although this type of world isn't realistic, it does make Tai very likable, since he's always doing the right thing and making the world a ton of fun to explore. You know you'll never miss out on an event because you're the only one doing anything. My only complaint is that Tai is a little OP. From the very first level, Tai is just as strong as he is on the very last level, and while this is nice and works in plenty of games, such as Jak and Daxter, here it feels like some amount of leveling up would have been nice. Like I said earlier, this is a very easy game, but perhaps that could have been stifled a bit if Tai would start off a bit weaker and get stronger as the game progresses. Yes, your boomerangs do get more powerful, but this is largely only needed to progress the story. The ice, fire, and electro rangs help you to access new areas and complete new quests, and even though this is true, they don't really make Tai any stronger. They do help with some enemies, but his default boomerangs and chomping combination are more than enough to handle any foe this game throws at you. This is, of course, apart from the bosses who require special rangs in order to beat. The last point is, of course, an exception to the aqua rangs, which are essential to progress throughout sections with water and underwater elements. Without them, Tai flounders around in the water, and getting them really widens your eyes when you think of all the new potential you get with these rangs. Sadly, you never really get that feeling again. Yes, the other rangs are cool, but they don't open up a whole new game mechanic into the world like the aqua rangs do. One or two more instances like this would have been incredible, but maybe I'm just being greedy and asking for too much. Tai is still immensely enjoyable, and perhaps cramming in a bunch of new features would ruin the original charm of the game. One positive thing about Tai that is undisputed is his absolute iron will. Nothing so much as slows him down or makes him think twice about completing his goals or helping his friend. The closest thing we get to this is the freaking turkeys you chase to get a thunder egg that seem to really frustrate Tai. And it's kind of funny to see him frustrated by a turkey and not a giant robot shark that eats explosives. This game has a very high nostalgia factor. Playing it in 2021 brings back that PS2 era feeling. Simple polygon shapes and open level design that you don't really see anymore. Even in games like Ratchet & Clank that are still being made today, the levels don't feel the same. They feel a little cluttered. But I'm sure that's just a product of improved graphics. Tai feels open and ready to be explored. You don't feel like you're changing the levels as you make your way through them. Surprisingly though, it all works. All these simple concepts come together to make something larger than the sum of their parts. After playing it, it is so easy to think back fondly on every part of this game. So, having laid all that information out, we still have to answer the most basic question. Is the game fun? Yes. Yes it is. Tai the Tasmanian Tiger is an enjoyable experience from beginning to end. The game has a slow curve from laid back to an intense feeling that time is running out as Boss Cass's forces control more and more of the world. The further into the game you get, the more hostile the levels get. Going from a calm beach with enemies scattered sparsely throughout to a volcanic secret base with enemies everywhere forcing you to fight for every inch of progress. From easily handled lizard boys that take one hit to hidden ninja assassins waiting until you've got your back turned to take you out. This natural feeling progression gives a lot of replayability to Tai. Once you get started, it's hard to stop. You want to finish that level, go turn in your cogs, get a new ring, and sprint to the next level to try them out. And with a fairly short runtime of about 8 hours, this game can be beaten in a day or two if you are willing to have some longer playing sessions. Tai's difficulty does increase throughout the run, but it never really reaches a point where I'd call it challenging. The final boss is harder than most boss fights, but the other bosses aren't that difficult, so it's not really that much of a peak. The challenge comes in learning their attack patterns and weak spots more than it comes from actually fighting them. New enemies are introduced at a pretty steady rate, so you do have to adjust. Most can be handled with the freezer ring, allowing you to freeze them and sprint past without ever having to get your paws or teeth dirty. Now I want to talk about cheese. And cheese, in case you didn't know, is a form of fermented cow juice. No, it's a term in video games for when you have to fight the game to get something to work or abuse a game mechanic in order to bypass a certain spot or defeat a particularly difficult enemy. Thai has a pretty low cheese level. It's sort of like cheddar or mozzarella. This game can be beaten in its entirety in the way the developers intended. No enemies are too difficult, and there's no platforming that can't be done without using clipping or anything like that. The game is well made, and everything works as intended. The game doesn't cheat you out of any fun, is what I'm trying to say. Thai is one of those games where you don't have to be actively trying to achieve anything to have a good time. Riding around on the bull or sitting back enjoying the calming atmosphere of Bridge Over the River Thai is an enjoyable enough experience itself. This trend continues throughout all the Thai games. We'll see a lot more of this environmental storytelling in Thai too, but we'll get to that later. Hey, what's up? You made it to the end of the video. For every game I cover on this channel, I want to give it a rating with a modern perspective. Having played masterpieces like Last of Us 1 and 2, Red Dead Redemption 1 and 2, Anthem, it's fun to go back with a modern perspective and see how these older classics hold up. Are they as fun as you and me remember, or have the pressures of time compacted them into a stripped down, less enjoyable game? For Thai the Tasmanian Tiger, I can confidently say this game holds up. While it's simple, it's supposed to be. That's the charm. It knew the story it wanted to tell, and it executed that to near perfection. Now a quick note before I tell you the score. I rate things on a 1 to 10 scale, no half numbers, and 5 is where things start getting good. Above a 5, and they only get better. Below a 5, they only get worse. An 8 and up is a must play, and for Thai the Tasmanian Tiger, this game deserves an 8 out of 10 rating. It is truly one of those hidden gems that more people should go back and play. There are a total of 4 Thai games, and we'll be covering the other ones later on, but if you want to pick them up yourself, they're available on Steam for $15 each, except for Thai 4, which is only $5 at full price. Thank you to everyone who watched this video. I'll be covering even more games soon, and if you have any games you would like me to review, leave them in the comments, and I'll shout out your comment if I pick that game. Once again, thank you so much, and I'll see you next time in the swamp, and the beach, and the jungle, and the caves. Spider caves.
What are you still doing here? Just press the jump button to get out.